Well, Chris, thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure, you're very welcome. So I've been a NASA JSC employee for about 8 years, and I recently left and joined Blue Origin. I've been there about 9 months. We've been friends for several years now. I helped to train you to be a flight controller. We had a blast together. So that's where I am now, working for Blue Origin out of Houston, Texas.
That's really exciting. What got you into space?
All right, it's a great story. When I was in 5th grade, we took a field trip to the NASA Challenger Center. They have a mock-up mission control, a mock-up space shuttle, and they split the kids off into teams, and you play around, you have these note cards. Well, everybody wanted to do the astronaut thing. And sure, I thought that was cool, but when I walked into the mock-up mission control room, the lights were off, the computer screens were on, everything was glowing, the buttons were glowing. That was it, sold. But since NASA seemed so unachievable and so difficult, space sort of faded from my life for a while and then came back when I was in college, and I wanted to go for it again and go for engineering and try to get back into that field. So here I am today.
Why did space seem unachievable to you? Like, why were you excited, and then like, what made it feel like it was out of reach?
Yeah, so I would say that it's this perception, maybe myth, maybe partly true, of the folks working here at Johnson and the other NASA centers, of just being so astronomically smart, way beyond anything you could ever do. That's the sense in a state like New York, where I grew up, because we're so far removed from it. And it's not to say I had a lack of confidence or anything like that. It just seemed like it was another level that no matter how hard I tried, it probably wasn't going to work out. So some truth to that, because the programs were built on such awesome initiative and intelligence. But yeah, the people there are smart, but you could be there too. You know, so it changed over time, but I think that's what it was.
Did you know anybody that was in the space industry?
I didn't know anyone in the space industry. The only person I met in my entire life before getting the job here was somebody who was working on the James Webb program. This was probably back in 2009. And he was at a conference and he talked about the shield and the heat shielding, and he had a piece of the material, and I had talked to him after the show, and it's the first person who ever shook their hand who had a NASA business card. So only person I met in my whole life.
Do you think it would have changed your views if you had like a teacher or, you know, a family friend or something that was in the space industry? Like, I mean, would that
seem achievable?
Make it, you know, somebody that could like really tell you, hey, you know, it's like a job like any other job. You know, we need entry level people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Uncle Bob's in the space industry.
Exactly.
If you can't do it, why? Perhaps that would have changed it. I had an uncle who was really big into astronomy, who really helped bring me back into the space world. As I was growing up, I would go over to his house, and he had a patio where it was overlooking the lake, so the light pollution was relatively low as it can be where I grew up in New York. So having him kind of reinvigorate me over the years really helped, but nobody specifically in the industry, so I think that would have helped.
Yeah, often, you know, you like see these families of actors, you know, like movie stars, you know, and it's just like they have the connections, they know what it takes.
Right.
They, you know, it's just like, I guess you probably have like space families too, where like astronauts with like
they absolutely
children.
Yeah, I have a friend at my company now whose father was an astronaut, and we've seen that here at JSC. There's folks in the rooms that we used to work in that had family members, and they're the kids of somebody that worked Apollo. So yeah, it's definitely around.
That's why I think outreach is so important. You know, I mean, like you've come to the Northeastern Space Society and spoke, and you know, just getting people that they can ask questions to, and that they're like, oh, this is the person I can follow up with.
You never know who you're going to set on the path to doing something that they love, because that's what happened at the NASA Challenger Center when I was in 5th grade. Took a field trip. These volunteer students that were running the little classes, they were taking time out of their day as middle schoolers, high school. They probably were high school age, but look what they did. They sent me my entire life on a trajectory just because they donated a couple hours to go volunteer. So you never know who you can do that to.
That is really awesome. And I guess this may be a wasted question on you, but it's my standard question.
Oh.
Did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
I did know that.
How did you find out?
How did I find out initially? I don't think there was any moment organically where I just found out. I think it was always something since the second I was hired that I knew was in work, in production. You know, I knew about Constellation getting canceled and what they were doing, and I knew about SLS being developed and things. It seemed like Mars for a while. I'll be honest, kind of around the 2013. It seemed like it was going to be Mars, and then there was this pivot shift that, oh no, we have to try all these things out on the moon first.
Yeah.
So, no organic moment that I found out, but yes, definitely aware.
Well, it's also maybe a wasted question, but what do you think about us going back to the moon?
Well, there's a lot of thoughts. I have to try to crystallize kind of the most important one. I think it's going to be, obviously there's incredible science to be done, and there's a lot of lessons learned and testing and things for Mars we're going to need. But I think what's most important to me is going to be the morale boost for our civilization. The inspiration that's going to come from 4K high definition footage of astronauts kicking around on the moon, I think that's going to amplify a lot of people to study harder, go to school, do what they want, try to get into the aerospace industry that is booming right now. So the science is absolutely important, but what really rings true for me is going to be that motivation that comes to all of us, you know, humanity, speaking of humanity.
No, that's great. I'd like to run by some different reactions I've gotten to that question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So early on, I would say within like the first 2 months of starting this project, they're actually a friend of mine, they said, we've messed up the Earth, we shouldn't mess up the moon too.
Have we messed up the Earth? Really? Have we? We've messed up certain areas. We've messed up parts. We haven't done the best because maybe we didn't have the best information at the time of what to do. But when you're out in the national parks, when you go to California and you see the redwoods, when you go swim in the ocean, when you go to the islands, or when you go fly to the SpaceX facility or the Blue Origin facility, or you go visit Johnson Space Center, I feel very proud of what humans have done with this planet. So I don't feel we have destroyed this planet. But I do, anyone who wants to make that argument fair, I don't think we're going to screw up the moon.
And, you know, actually my initial reaction is a little bit different than that. Mm-hmm. I was like thinking, a lifeless rock.
What are we possibly going to do?
How could you mess it up?
There's not all this oil we're going to start pumping out and spraying all over the place.
And then the other thought I had is if it's not for us, who is it for?
Right.
So I mean, maybe that second one is very egotistical, but
sure.
I mean, if somebody else has dibs on it, please show yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's a great. What are we going to possibly do with the rock? But good question. Interesting reaction as well.
Another one is, what's the point of going to the moon? Haven't we been there before?
Yeah. Well, we were there for different reasons. You know, we didn't really have the ability to handpick landing sites for maximum scientific gain. We do now. We've been doing it. We've been picking sites. Where are the rocks? Where are the craters? Where is there ice? Where can we mine the ice? Can we even mine the ice? Can we turn it into fuel? All of this stuff is accessible to us now, and it's a different reason. It's a different time. And you know, I'll use another analogy with the national parks. You went there as a child with your family. Well, now I'm 31. Just because I've been to some national park when I was 6 and I've already been there once, my reasons are different. Now it's to go out, to de-stress, to enjoy the environment, to maybe spend time with a wife or a kid someday, right? Not because my parents just took me on this trip and they hoped I would like it. So the reasons are different.
That's true. I mean, at Disney World, a lot of people have been there once and they go again. It's like,
Right.
did you ride all the rides? Why are you
All the
going?
rides are different
Yeah.
every decade, right? Except for Space Mountain.
There you go. Yeah, and of course the Mickey Mouse thing. Anyway,
Oh yeah, you've been a bunch of times.
I have been.
I know that.
When you think about the future of humanity 200 years out, what does it look like to you?
I don't have a dystopian view of the world. I think that if we're making it 200 years as a cohesive civilization like this, if we don't stumble and fall in the next 50, 60, 70, I think we're going all the way. I think we're going to have most of the diseases under control. We're going to have most of the famine under control. We're going to have most of the wars under control. We're going to have all sorts of technology to repair our bodies, our minds. We can think clearer. We can make more intelligent decisions about things. You know, if we're using more of our brain capacity and using it in different ways, I mean, of course we're going to make better decisions as a society. So if we get there, I think it's going to work and it's going to be good.
So you think in 200 years, how many people do you think live off planet? Like ballpark?
200. This may sound like a very conservative estimate. I have thought about this. I don't think it's going to be as many as people think. You'll probably, I've heard this question before, and you may hear 50,000, 100,000, million. I think it may be a couple thousand at the most.
In 200 years.
Yes.
Now, I just want to rewind a little bit here. 200 years ago, we didn't have electric light bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have electric generators. We didn't know what to do with oil. We
only invented airplanes, right?
Yeah.
Before we landed on the moon.
Yeah, we didn't.
Right.
There was no recording of any sound whatsoever. I mean, 200 years ago, I mean, I think the population of the Earth was about a sixth of what it is now? Less, maybe?
I don't know.
You know, people didn't fly around the world. I mean, there are more airline passengers now per year than I think there were people 200 years ago.
Is that true?
I think so. I think it's close.
Per year, if you
Per
did
year.
a yearly total?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, think about, it could be every second of every day at every airport. It's just right. But that's kind of my feeling, that even a several thousand on a Mars colony, it's a large number of people. Well, we'll have space stations, we'll have some people. So maybe off planet you have to include space station folks. And I'm not including them. I'm kind of including Moon, Mars. So if you include folks in space stations, it would be probably a lot more.
Like, can you imagine looking at the Wright Flyer, like in 1903, 1902? One of the two. And you see like this guy hanging on a wing with like a motor in the back. And you're like, we're going to build one of those that carries 500 people.
Right. We're showing them in just such a short amount of time, we have put somebody on the moon. Just going there and saying in one lifetime, from the point where you're on that little glider jumping off the cliff, crashing into the dirt, yeah, we launched this giant rocket and we put somebody up there. So, yeah.
Okay, you're an engineer. You solve problems. Let me give you the problem. How do we make it in 200 years? What would it take to make it in 200 years that there are more people off this planet than on this planet?
Well, the only reason I have an answer for this is because we just had this discussion. And I won't steer this in too much of a negative direction, but there would have to be a global sense of impending doom for the civilization's future, where the world collectively agrees. Not one political party and one disagrees. I'm talking everyone agrees, okay, I don't think we all can handle our weapons technology, whether it's biological or nuclear or whatever, thermonuclear. And we all agree we've got to get out there. We have to set up these colonies. We have to get the oxygen up there, and we need to do it soon. So I think the only thing that would make more people off than on the planet in 200 years would be that type of a global mission.
Let me challenge that just a little bit.
Certainly.
And say that using our current technology, that makes a lot of sense. But if you open your mind and think like completely out of the box. Is there anything in terms of technology that you think would completely change that equation? Where, you know, what I think about is like if you had like the transporter, you know, you go walk through a door and walk out on Mars. I mean, that would fundamentally change everybody's equation in terms of what we would do. You know, you have like your Mars house and your lake house.
Well, that's someday someone will have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your moons of Jupiter house and moons of Saturn. You're just kind of like walk through this.
Well, I can't think of any technologies that I'm currently aware of that would completely negate the risk of biological warfare or thermonuclear warfare. You know, without going it's too deep of a tangent. But how can one even project when the integrated circuit looked so different? They could never have predicted what it would have looked like today. Or one could have never predicted what lasers would be able to do when they invented the technology. So, yeah, it's probably likely that something will come along that changes that equation.
I mean, could you imagine inventing like this, like understanding the fundamental nature of the fabric of the universe and learning how to build controllable wormholes? I mean, the person that got this technology, they would just go and grab all the weapons of they're like, shoot the weapons, and it's like, oh, the silo's empty, I don't know what happened.
Right. The Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man, where they come down and they take all the weapons and peace. I don't know if you've seen that episode.
No, I know about the cookbook.
Sure,
that's all
yes,
I know
it's
about.
a cookbook. But right, there's a lot of ways. I guess I'll close that sort of discussion with, I feel very optimistic about the next 200 years. I don't have, like I said, a dystopian view where I think we're headed for some crash. I just don't see it.
If you could, would you take a trip to space?
Absolutely.
How far would you go?
As far as I was financially able. So if I can afford a ticket on New Shepard to go into space just barely, I'll go. If I can take a rocket to the moon before I die, I absolutely would do it. No hesitation.
Poster you see at the mailbox or wherever, maybe, I don't know, walking around says, you know, columnist wanted, apply now, your home is on Mars. Would you call that number and say?
Well, it would be a discussion with my friends and family, but depending on my age, I think I would probably not do Mars right now. If that poster existed, I would be leaving everything, and friends and family, all of that is still so important to me that I wouldn't leave it just because I want to be on Mars. But there may come a time where the trade works out, where, yeah, I go do that and other thing.
That makes sense. Of course, you know, I think also we're going to be living a lot longer too. I mean, you working until you're like 150 might be an option.
It might be an option, especially with that kale salad I just ate, so I'm hoping to get to that age.
There you go. Well, Chris, I know we covered a lot of topics.
Yeah.
Was there anything you want to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, nothing in particular. Just the thing I want to close with is on that theme of why did I not think it was possible? And, you know, anything possible is such a cop-out because it's so... But trying to find what you're good at and trying to go do that role, I've seen it work so many times for so many people. There's a lot to learn about banging your head against the wall in something you're not good at, and everyone needs that. So I would say don't avoid the careers and the projects where you are banging your head against the wall because you don't enjoy it and you feel like you're not good because you need those skills. But there comes a time where you got to just seek out what you are good at and what you love, regardless of anything else. And if you've built up all the skills of you failed here, and you have those lessons, you're going to be a lot happier because of it. And I had a situation like that at NASA with certain projects were taking me down one road, and certain projects were taking me down another to be an instructor. And I needed those lessons of failure on sort of the ops side of things, where that wasn't my calling. I certainly did the mission control job for many years and did it well and loved a lot of it, but I wasn't excellent like some of the other folks were, and I tried hard, but I knew the instructing side was for me, and I had enough of those lessons learned from the ops side that I was able to go pursue what I loved, and I was very happy because of it. So that's what I'll close with.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.